Hello everyone and welcome to Flight Controls and Control Surfaces 285A5. This is course number 2, Airworthiness Notice C010 and Maintenance Tasks. You see actually not mine, but my wife's bird in the back. His name is Sky. He doesn't like me too much and I don't like him too much, but it's my wife's bird, so there's nothing I can do about it. All right, so let's do this. Today's program, we're going to talk about maintenance and manual. So maintenance, what is maintenance in regards to flight control systems? What is special in regards to this maintenance of flight controls? In the manual section, where is the information for this maintenance found? What system is used to find information for the maintenance manuals? What the maintenance task on aircraft controls and control surfaces, what kind of maintenance we do. Manufacturing, first installation of the component, system assembly, installation and removal of parts. Also, we're going to talk about rigging, inspection, static and dynamic, operational test, repairs, replacement of defective parts, troubleshooting, also structural repair, static balancing, servicing, cleaning, monitoring of technical books, etc. So there's quite a bit of information in regards to flight controls. What is a EME? Uh, Basically, he's a mechanic, okay? It's a mechanic and it has to have good mechanical skills, ability to understand the interaction between the components of and their functions. Also is a technologist, so understand the importance of procedures, rules, and the documented process by recognized authorities. He's also a professional who knows that as long as the paperwork is not finished, the work is not completed. So there's quite a bit of paperwork, in aircraft maintenance. Everything has to be traceable. So it is super important that the paperwork is done as per the standards. Is there something special with maintenance activities on flight control systems? Yes, it is. Uh, the Airworthiness Notice C010 issued by Transport Canada gives you the basics of it. So if you haven't taken the time to read it, now would be the perfect moment. There's going to be questions on that throughout the semester and in your coming exams. So I suggest that you take a few minutes to read it and answer the following questions. Read the Airworthiness Notice C010 and answer the questions on your sheet. Now, usually in class we give 20 minutes, so you can pause the video and read it. Then there's going to be some questions and you see if you have the correct answers. Now, anything that sounds or looks important in the reading, outline it, use a highlighter or whatever just to outline the important portions. And we're gonna do the questionnaire after that. Now, you can always just flip through the pages and look directly at the answers. I strongly recommend you don't do that because there will be questions on the exam. If you don't read it now, you're gonna miss some very important information. All right, so take a few minutes, read it, and then we answer the questions. All right. Okay, so now you've read the Airworthiness Notice C010. We're going to answer some questions. I'm just going to erase my face from here. Question number one, what is the main objective of this notice? Why Transport Canada issued this? There's a few good reasons why they did that. If you read the document, it says despite widespread educational efforts in the introduction of special inspection requirements, incidents and faulty control rigging continues to occur. This leads, of course, to accidents. Okay, so in an effort to eliminate such occurrences, the notice is issued to explain the regulations applicable to the maintenance of engine and flight controls and to outline the applicable standards for flight control system maintenance. So this is the main reason about this notice issued by Transport Canada. Question number two, what is the system covered or the systems covered by this notice? For the purpose of the notice, flight and engine controls includes all controls by which the propulsive force or flight path of an aircraft can be altered, and includes both primary and secondary flight controls. Question 3. What are the phrases that could sum up the general idea of this notice? If you had to sum up the notice, what would be those key phrases? You need a second set of eyes. Okay, when you do an inspection, you need somebody to look at your work. This is also known as dual inspection, meaning you inspect your work and you ask somebody else to also inspect your work. Okay, just to make sure that everything is correct. Is also the independent check. Somebody independent that didn't do or didn't perform the work will actually look at what you did. Question 4. Does the person who carries out the independent inspection assumes the full responsibility for the maintenance performed? What would you say? Of course not. He didn't do the work, okay? So he's not taking full responsibility. He just verified that everything seems to be correct, okay? So he cannot be um, held responsible for the work that you did. That means you have to do the work correctly because you're not passing on the responsibility onto somebody else. The signature of the person performing the independent inspection check uh, attests that to the satisfactory completion of a quality assurance inspection. That's all he does. He did the inspection, everything seems to be fine. He didn't find anything wrong with it. But if there's some hidden defects, he's not responsible for it. In keeping with the CAR's principles of focused accountability and independent quality assurance, this activity forms no part of the direct performance or certification of the work, meaning that the person that actually does the independent inspection did not take part necessarily in the work itself. Okay, so the certification, you cannot certify of the work. It is not a final approval of the work as a traditional quality control signature would be, meaning if an inspector does a full complete inspection and certifies the part, then the person could be held responsible for that. Also, the person signing the maintenance release is the person who assumes the full responsibility of the satisfactory completion of the work. Responsibility is not shared with other signatory, meaning somebody who did the independent inspection is not accountable for the final signature on this. the person that does um, the maintenance release is the AME ultimately. Now this means that some other people can do the inspection without having an AME license necessarily, but there's some uh, important information in regards to what that person qualifications should be. What is the person that signs the independent check attesting to? Well, he's actually attesting that the satisfactory completion of quality assurance inspection, meaning he says or he signs that the inspection was carried out and that everything was satisfactory in terms of quality assurance. Question 6. What qualifications are needed in order to conduct an independent inspection? Now remember I mentioned it doesn't have to be an AME. Since the signature is not a maintenance release, it is not restricted to licensed AMEs. So that means somebody else can do the verification without having a license. However, the person undertaking the responsibility must have suitable qualifications to do that. Meaning, you may have been trained um, in the maintenance of the flight controls, but you don't have a license, you don't have an AME license, but you can still do the independent inspection. For example, me, I don't have a AME license. I was working in component maintenance, and uh, it doesn't exist. There's no license for maintenance of components. Though I was authorized to sign under the shop certification authority from the AMO, organized maintenance organization. So I would be able to do an inspection, independent inspection, and still uh, be or have the possibility to do that verification without having an AME's license. Where the work is being done under a control or an approved maintenance organization, AMO, just like I was, this qualification may be restricted to holders of a full aircraft certification authority. Alternatively, it may be granted to individuals who do not hold a full ACA, like me, on type, but who are qualified to control system authority after completion of applicable training from in regards to cars. So this describes actually pretty much my situation where I didn't have a ACA, but I had the SCA, Shop Certification Authority. Question 7. Does the person conducting the independent inspection needs to know and understand the system that he or she is inspecting? What would you say? Of course, yes. Okay, if you don't understand what you're inspecting, it's very hard to figure out if it's properly done or not. Question 8. Who can certify that the flight tests are successful? So now we're talking about flight test. So the only person really who is qualified to do that would be the pilot. Okay, so pilot acceptance signature following a successful test. Now, you do a maintenance on flight controls. This guy takes the aircraft for a spin. You better make sure that everything is correct, otherwise it might not return to tell you, okay? Question 9. Can a person performing the inspection simply do a visual inspection without operating the system? And explain your answer. Well, no. Okay, you need to operate the system to make sure everything works. So as a minimum, it must include an inspection for correct assembly and locking of any parts in the system disturbed by the maintenance performed. And by disturb, we mean removal, reinstallation. So if you disconnect a cable, this would disturb the system. An operational check for proper sense, meaning direction, and range, meaning amplitude of movement, is required. Okay, you have to check those. You have to check that everything moves in the proper direction and with the proper range. Question 10. To ensure the proper operation of the inspected flight control system, what should be the method used when working as a team? It is usually not possible for a person to check the range, meaning the amplitude of the movement and the direction of the movement uh, in both extremes of the system at the same time. Meaning, if you're inside the cockpit, okay, on a small aircraft, yes, you can always look through the window and see if your aileron is moving up or down. But on example, a 747, you're sitting in the cockpit, you will not see your wings. Okay, you will not see the ailerons moving. So you need to work with somebody else as a team. So it may be necessary to involve two persons working as a team, one in the cockpit operating the controls and one outside looking at the control surface or other device, observing the effect of the control input. If I turn the wheel in this direction or the side stick to that direction, what happens outside? Super important that you work as a team, because you cannot do the same, you cannot do the two positions at the same time. To reduce the likelihood of such errors after completion of the check, individuals should reverse roles, carry the check again, meaning you were outside, he was inside, you just switch places and redo the whole test. Make sure that everything is working correctly. Question 11. Are there any exceptions? Is it possible to perform maintenance on flight control systems without the need of a double inspection? Now, double inspection is a keyword in this. You'll hear that many times in the course. So can we do any type of work on the system without needing somebody else to come and do a double inspection? Yes, some exceptions in the context of disturbs. It actually means to disconnect or adjustment or disruption of the system itself. So if you didn't disconnect anything, you didn't disconnect a cable, you didn't disassemble anything, you will not need the double inspection. But as soon as you disconnect a cable, even by mistake, you will need a second inspection. It does not include adjustment of travel stops, and simple adjustments of this kind do not require dual inspection, meaning as you will find out, flight controls, they do have travel stops, mechanical stops, to prevent any, for example, aileron from moving too much up or too much down. So those mechanical stops, if they need to be readjusted, you do not need a second inspection. Removal and installation of co-pilot's control wheel and rudder pedals that have been designed for rapid replacement without the use of end tools. It also exempted from the dual inspection. Now this is interesting because some aircraft, they do have co-pilot controls that can be removed without end tools. That means that removing those or replacing or reinstalling do not need the second inspection. Also, the replacement of side sticks, like in case of Airbus, for example, Airbus family aircraft, they have this little side stick or joystick. The, electronic flight control computers, full authority digital engine control computers, what is also known as FADEC, they don't need to be re-inspected, provided that the electrical connectors include provision to protect against incorrect assembly. This is my phone. Sorry. All right. Sorry about that. Choice from for working from home. Okay, so question number 12. When checking for sense or direction of operation, what is the best approach that is recommended? Okay, so basically, the better approach is to visualize the aerodynamic and other forces acting on the controls and mentally follow the results chain of events, meaning you know that if you pull on the yoke, pulling on the yoke means nose up, so that means tail down. So tail down means the elevator should be sticking up. So this is the kind of train of thought that we should have when we inspect those, just to make sure that everything is going the proper way or the proper direction. In case of an elevator control, this method would involve the following sequence or thought sequence. Let's see, stick back, control, surface moves up, which pulls the tail down, which brings the nose up. So the aircraft climbs, meaning everything is okay. Now, if the control surface goes in the wrong direction, there would be you would be concerned about that. So, question 13. Could there be legal consequences for not respecting the philosophy behind the Airworthiness Notice C010? What do you think? If you don't follow the established rule? Yes, of course. So, where faulty control rigging results in an accident, all those involved could be charged with negligence. Flight controls basically is the most important thing on an aircraft. If you cannot control where you're going, you're gonna crash. It's almost certain. Okay, so meaning if you faultly rig the aircraft, for example, you reverse the aileron direction. You know, there's an aircraft in the hangar that has reversed controls. That was made on purpose. Okay, but it does happen sometimes. So that's why this notice was issued, just to try to make sure prevent this kind of thing from happening. Okay. So, in summary, if all of us involved in the maintenance of control systems were to simply resolve to treat the task with the attention it deserves, regardless of how simple it may appear, control rigging accidents could be completely eliminated. So this is basically the sense of that notice, just to make sure that even if it looks simple, it seems simple, just put all you got into the task, okay, just to make sure it doesn't happen. Manuals. What are the manuals required to perform a maintenance task on an aircraft? Well, there's a few manuals that are required for that. One is the maintenance manual. So AMM for Aircraft Maintenance Manual, also the Illustrated Parts Catalog, IPC. This is used to identify parts and part numbers, not for maintenance. You cannot use IPC as a maintenance manual. Other manuals that are available, AC 4313, if no other manual exists, not because you don't have it, it's because it doesn't exist. Component maintenance manual, CMM, that's what I was working with most of the time. Wiring diagram, structural repair manuals, fault isolation manuals or troubleshooting, manufacturer special instructions, service bulletins, airworthiness directive, training manuals. So there's quite a few actually, but the two main, maintenance manual and of course the illustrated parts catalog. Manuals are available via different supports. What are they? Well, some cases or um, most cases on older aircraft, you have paper copy of the maintenance manual. Microfiche, I bet you don't even know what it is. These are like microfilms. It's a sheet with several small images that needed to be enlarged in some sort of a projector. Uh, just a little note, when I was at Air Canada, when I started at Air Canada, we had microfiche for the maintenance of the example, the L1011, DC9, DC8. This, I'm pretty sure none of you have even ever heard of that, and it's a technology that is long gone. Nowadays, everything is mostly web-based, which is perfect because that ensures you that you have the latest and greatest version of the maintenance manual. Of course, there's always Google if you want to know how to do stuff. Not. Okay, Google is not a source for reliable aircraft maintenance information. It's good if you want to do research or homeworks and stuff, but not for maintenance of aircrafts. Manuals are published by aircraft manufacturers to assist in the aircraft maintenance. They provide information on many things: inspection, troubleshooting, installation, removal, and testing of aircraft system. Before using any manual, the very first step, very important, is to verify that your document is up to date, meaning the revision, you have the latest and greatest. When I was at Air Canada, we still had some paper copies of some maintenance manuals, and when you signed a maintenance release, you had to add a note saying this the maintenance testing and certification was performed as per manual blah 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 this number, and you had to state the revision date, meaning if something happens, they can trace back to whatever maintenance version or maintenance manual version you used. So if you use the one that was current, you're fine. If you use the one that was no longer current, this could mean that the company could be at trouble. Because if there was a revision and the company did not implement the revision of the manual, um, I mean, that was a protection for us. You state which manual you use, and um, the company was to make sure that you have the proper tools or proper version of the manual. You also have to verify that whatever manual you use is actually uh, does apply to your specific aircraft, specific model, specific serial number, because sometimes maintenance task will give you an effectivity, meaning this info is good for this serial number till this serial number, and from another serial number and subsequent, you have a different procedure. Air Transport Association has established a standard classification system for the manuals, which is pretty much followed by everyone today. So everything is divided into different chapters, and for us, for this course, 27, chapter 27 would be the most important one. Although Auto Flight 22, we also talk about that a little bit. So flight controls would be in chapter 27 of all ATA controlled manuals, regardless of the manufacturer. So how does this work? First of all, you have the chapter, section, subject, and page block. For example, chapter 27 sections. 2710 will be ailerons, 2720 rudder, then elevator for 30, 40 is the horizontal stab, and so on and so forth. So 2700 XX, the two last digits would be the subsection, and this is actually determined by the manufacturer, and can be different from one manufacturer to another one. So this has to do with whatever the manufacturer wants to put in those two numbers. The maintenance manual pages usually, and this is pretty much standardized, although in some cases it may vary, but if you're looking for troubleshooting, it should be in the 100 page numbers, standard practices in the 200, routine maintenance in the 300. What's important for us would be, let's say, 600, which would be inspection, and 500, the rigging and checks. So pretty much all manufacturers will establish the same format. Even in our case, for component maintenance, the inspection was in the 600 pages. Also, we had the overall or standard practices, let's say standard practices in the 200. So this was pretty much the same established page block numbers for even component maintenance manuals. According to ATA system, where would you find instructions regarding the inspection of, let's say, flap actuators? Which chapter? If you say anything then 27, that's because you weren't following, okay? So flight control, oh, by the way, this is my bird, my wife's bird that you hear. So flight controls, chapter 27. Which section? Flap is section 50. Specific part could be located in which subsection. Flap actuator could be in whatever. That is according to the manufacturer. So there, we do not have any control on that. So it is not standard that actuators would be in a specific section. The inspection of part of which would be in which block section or which block of pages. Inspection should be in the 600 block. So inspection of components would be 600 page block. So if you're looking for information regarding the inspection of the flap actuators, it should be available in the 2750 XX, whatever the number is, and the 600 page block for inspection. What information do we find in maintenance manuals? Well, we see a lot of information. We see the assembly views, so how it is put together. We also see detailed procedure. Now, this is the important stuff. Adjust the mechanical stop bolt for range of travel as follow. This will take your hand and guide you step by step to what you need to do. Step 1, remove rig pins from the rear quadrant. Remove rig pins 2 from the tension regulator. So this will actually guide you step by step to what needs to be done. Now, if you look at 3, pressurize the applicable hydraulic system as follow. Pressurize number 1 and 2 hydraulic system. It will send you to a task number. This task number will describe how to actually energize the system. So this is really a step-by-step guide on how to perform that procedure. It will also give you warnings, things that need to be done to prevent any accidents, incidents. So for example, put the safety device warning signs and warning placards in position before you start the procedure, okay, or on the or near the flight controls, flight control surfaces, components that will move. So this is in order to prevent any personal injuries, for example. On NAS manuals, this is a Cessna 337 Section 6 aileron control system. This is an example. Of course, this is not ATA controlled just because most of aircrafts at ENA are just way too old to have to be part of the ATA control. So, as I mentioned earlier, it is a little bit more difficult to find the information. It's there. You just have to do a little more research. But a good hint is to look at the table of contents, which explains everything you will find in different chapters or sections. So the information is similar, a little bit more difficult to find. So view the table of content, you should be able to find the information. On ENA's manuals, this is an example of what we find for the Aero Commander. Uh, this page here, if you see the top chart, it gives you the tension of cables in regards to temperature, because temperature will affect the tension on cables. And below that, you will have all the control surface, travel, and cable tensions. So this is the type of information you'll find. So it's not ATA controlled, but the information is still there. On the Beech 18, this is even an older aircraft. So you look at the little graph there for the column neutral setting. You actually have to take a tape measure and uh, measure the length or the distance between the fixed instrument panel and the actual column. It should be between 11.5 inch and 11.75 of an inch. So the older the aircraft, the more sketchy the information is. All right, so you have a little homework to do at school, preferably because you need the manuals. Although you can connect via VPN, I believe, to a school server and access the information. I've done a separate video for the little details on the homework, but essentially is about the Cessna 337 Super Skymaster. You have to find a replacement part. So you need to find the part number of that. And on the Dornier 328, I would like to get the information on the procedure for replacement of a flap actuator post SB 328-27-293. So just look at the other video with the explanation on the homework, and also I will give you a little sheet on which to write down the information, and you can end it to me at your next lab. All right. So thanks for watching and stay safe.